Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are here for another month of the SlabStox market report. We're going to be going over the month of October. I can't believe we're already in November. This is kind of crazy. We're like closing out the year pretty much. My name is Lou. I'm joined, as always, by my friend Aaron from SlabStox. Aaron, tell the people how you're doing. Say hello, all that good stuff.
I'm doing well. Excited to talk about another month of card movement and card sales and everything. And always good to be here with Lou. Are you happy today? You got your Astros gear on. Are you happy?
Job's not finished. We got one more to go. Play again on Saturday. By the time you're hearing this, it'll be game day in theory, so you'll know what's going to happen. Yeah, listen, the Astros are the better team in this series. They've been the better team the entire time. We gave them a nice little win at home just to make the crowd feel good, and then they were leaving early yesterday again. We're going to win the series. I'm not worried about it. You were saying that you wanted the Astros to lose. I don't really understand that.
Why would you not want the Astros to lose? They're the most hated team in the MLB. Cheaters.
But like the Brewers are like nothing. Like why do you even have an interest? They're an irrelevant team.
Oh wow, Lou likes to go take low blows all the time when it comes to people going against
with lesser baseball teams. Yeah.
Do you see yourself as like the kind of like the Darth Vader of the MLB?
No, I do not. I do not. But people do get very upset. People get really mad when you defend the Astros on the internet. People get really, really mad and really worked up.
I know. I see it all the time.
Yeah, it kind of like brings me a lot of joy, to be honest. Like I'm obviously like it's all jokes and like for fun, but like how mad people get makes me really happy. Especially when they win.
My last question is, Lou, could you take losing in the World Series to another NL East team?
No, the answer is no. I'll be really, really, really sad if that happens again.
That'd be three straight teams.
It's kind of nuts, right? It's like, wow, the Mets are like pretty embarrassing. They can't even get to the World Series, beat the Astros. What a disaster!
Seriously.
Yeah, it would be really bad, but I think they're gonna win. I think they're gonna win on Saturday and wrap it up in 6.
Got you. All right. Well, let's pull up this report and let's get going.
Let's get into the report. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you, Jay. So I'll start scrolling. You tell me when to stop. I think it's an interesting month, right? Like I know the first take we're really excited to talk through, and then we have some other cool stuff going on as well.
Yeah, definitely. So we're gonna scroll on to the first take. You'll see where it says take 1, and there we are. So take 1 for this month's report. Name right there is why rare card oversupplies led to big losses. So this isn't pertaining to like every single card that's sold, because I want to preface this with that there are cards that are still gaining value in a down market. But if you did, let's just say, buy and sell an extremely rare card in a very short amount of time, both on auction, it probably didn't go too well. So there's a lot of words here in this specific takeaway, which are super important. And I don't want to sit here and read through it, because that would just be a waste of everyone's time, because you can go on to 137pm.com, look up SlabStox on the search engine and find this article. There's a lot of really important reasons for why people buy Grail cards, why they hold on to Grail cards, and why they eventually sell them, or when and how it can work and build profit off of it. But we're going to look at the side that isn't as pretty right now. If Lou keeps on scrolling, there's going to be some graphics here and a couple different sales to talk about that occurred. So first sale we have here that you're going to stop on is a dual logo shield right here from I think this is from Ultimate Collection Hockey. It's Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. This card is extremely interesting and different, because it says rookie tandem shields on this, but this is not a rookie card. It's number 2/2. This was produced in 2017. I believe what they did is they just took images from both of their rookie seasons and put them on a card and then put rookie tandem shields on. But it's very confusing for, let's say, someone that doesn't know hockey very well, or maybe doesn't know when these guys debuted, or doesn't know cards super well, and that sometimes they'll do this, just like with the basketball historic tickets set in Contenders, where they put like their rookie image on it and the rookie jersey and try to do it like a throwback card. So this one, presumably someone that bought for $22,226 on June 4th, 2022, maybe they thought that this was a rookie card, and maybe this was a bidding war between two people that thought that this should be valued around $22,000 of McDavid and Draisaitl, two of the best players in the NHL, McDavid being the very best, are rookies on it. And this card was sold extremely quickly. Within 4 months, it went back up for auction, sold for $8,400. It's a 62% loss. Now, the interesting thing about this is, like, for myself, like, I think this card's amazing. Like, I think it's a great card. But if I were to buy it in June of 2022, there's no chance that I would say, let me try a quick flip and numbered out of 2 5-figure card on auction. It just is a recipe for disaster. If you scroll down a little bit more, we thought that it'd be interesting to kind of bring up these high population comparisons. Lou, if you get a little scroll action here.
Yes, sir.
So just right there, pause. Oh, a little too. There you go. So McDavid's Young Guns PSA 10 since his exact same time frame, June 4th, 2022, gained 2%, and Drysdale's 2014 Young Guns rookie PSA 10 since June 4th lost 21%. So while the Drysdale has dipped a decent amount, the McDavid's been pretty flat. But it's nothing compared to a 62% loss in the exact same card, which is perceived to be a grail card, which is perceived to be a better investment, which is perceived to be something that people will desire in the future. Now, we'll talk about why it maybe wasn't desired as we kind of go through the rest of these examples and get to the end. Next one is a Tom Brady, same situation, bought in July, 66 grand, sold in October for $27,000 as a 59% loss, the exact same card in just, 3 months. You can keep going here. And then each example, we've got a different high population card to compare to it. This one was like the Bowman Chrome Tom Brady, but y'all can go read about those, the different comparisons. Lewis Hamilton, this is his Dynasty patch out number 5, a great card, a card that people would say, back in July or May. I actually think that this thing sold in May. That's got to be a typo on this graphic here, so I can get that fixed and send that back to Jay. But this sold in May for $90,000.
Unbelievable.
Small mistake. Sold in May for $90,000 and then sold again in October for $43,200, a 52% loss, which is significant, obviously. Keep scrolling, and all these are on auction. Bought on auction, sold on auction, either going between various platforms on the same platform. The platform thing is really it's irrelevant here with these cards being sold so fast. And then this Anthony Edwards here, a basketball one, Prism Black Auto, 1/1 PSA 1010. 144,000 January 8th, down to 81,000 October 20th. So that's a 44% drop in like a longer time frame, 10 months. So this one, yes, the market's trend down, substantially since the start of the year. So this one's not as quick as the others, but still is, being sold within the same year. And then this next one is probably the worst one I've seen out of all these examples. This next one is the Khabib from 2022 Prism UFC. It's a flashback black 1/1 Prism PSA 10. Bought in June, $23,000. Sold in October, $7,200. 4 months, 68% loss. Quite crazy. Now the reason why this is happening, and it's kind of in the middle of all that text there. It says, here's why. So every single time, like let's say you and I are both bidding it out on a card on auction for a 1/1 or an out of 5 that we both really want, and I'm willing to pay 15 grand, you're willing to pay $14,000 as the second bidder. It'll sell for 15K because your bid goes just as high up to mine. Let's say that I'm like 4 months later, I'm like, oh sweet, like I bought in the off season, I'm gonna sell in the preseason just as I sell $100 cards to try to get $150. But so much of the value of this card was built up between two people wanting it for a certain amount of money to where, let's say I list it 4 months from now. Lou, maybe you don't even look at the auction that I put up, or maybe you don't even you don't even know. And then if the third highest paying bidder was $7,000 or the third highest bidder in our auction that we were going back and forth on was $7,000. And let's say that is the exact same bidding pool other than you and other than me that was bidding on it, presumably would sell for $7,000, which is like a 50% loss. And that's the exact same bidding pool. And it could be less by that point too. There could be less people interested. If you see a 1/1 come up 4 months apart, the perceived value of like a grail card that will never be seen is pretty much gone because it's come up 2 times in 4 months. So much of the value for these grail cards, these rare cards, is that if you don't get it now,
you might not see it for 10 years.
Exactly. But when it comes up twice within 3 or 4 or 5 months, it has been seen in 10 years again. And then the perception of that specific card goes way down. So there's a lot of things that work. I really urge everyone to go read 1:37 p.m. For this market report, because you can kind of get a really good grasp on all this stuff. But Lou, I want to ask your thoughts on like what's going on in the market right now with people that were buying these and selling them so quickly. Was it a really good buy the second time this sold because you kind of got like the bottom of the barrel after the bidding war went for the first time where it's like this won't show up again? Or what do you think?
I think a lot of things. The first thing I would say is I think we should, as a collective, reframe the meaning of the phrase like good buy or bad buy. I think, you weren't doing it there, but when people are saying goodbye, a lot of times they're talking about it in terms of like another flipping opportunity, or like you paid a good price for it because you'll be able to sell it for more later, right? Like that's really a good buy. It has no relevance if you're just buying something to collect it anyway. You just bought it because you bought it because you wanted it, and that was the end. Um, but in terms of the resale market and everything else, like we talked about it on Car Talk a little bit. I don't have all the answers. Obviously, I don't think you have all the answers either. Something that's hard to verbalize is like um it's very difficult to predict how these things are going to go going forward, right? Like these high priced auctions in a world where inflation is at whatever percent it's at, and people are now like we're back at the end of tax season again. People are getting ready to harvest taxes and deal with tax stuff, and you're gonna see cards listed that you probably wouldn't see at the end of the year anyway, just because people are trying to get some money back for the end of the year, and they don't care if it sells for 40% less. So like you're right that it's a piece of people are buying things and reselling them too fast. There's the mistakes, like you said, with the hockey card. And then there's going to be times where people are just going to sell cards really way faster than they probably should for whatever reason they have. So like it's really hard to pinpoint exactly what it is. But for me, when I see this stuff, it just continues to drive home the point of like, if you don't really love Khabib, you probably shouldn't be spending a lot of money on Khabib cards right now. If you don't really, really love the Timberwolves or the Wolves, like you should not be spending $81,000 on Anthony Edwards, because 81,000 seems kind of high too. If you take a wider lens of a wider view lens of the whole thing, and like, oh, this could probably go a lot lower, I would imagine.
Not to mention
Um,
that specific card isn't like, while it's a black one of one, it's not really like one of his best cards or most coveted cards. So we're like
totally, it's a prism.
that, like where the big money spenders, like the time it shows up, they need to have it. I don't think this is a card that if it shows up a third time that someone would need to have it again, to get that, maybe bidding war going. And I do agree with you. I know you probably have more thoughts to share, but really quickly, like I have, over the last 2 years now, a year and a half, picked up like a super high end one of one of like Mason Mount. And I have a really big Mason Mount collection. I've always said, like, hey, if there's a day that another Mason Mount collector or English football fan or a Chelsea fan walks up that needs a card worse than I want it for the price it is, I'd be happy to let go because I have so many other Mason Mounts I'm happy with. But until that day comes, I'm not going to sell it. Like I didn't buy it to relist it on auction that quickly. And I do really like Mason Mount. And I do watch all the Chelsea matches. Like I am very invested, like time wise and like passion wise, into what it is. Versus, like you said, if you're not a Timberwolves fan, you don't really care about Anthony Edwards, but he's like a big NBA prospect. Like maybe don't drop 81 grand or 144 for that matter.
Yeah, but dude, like, what's Anthony Edwards got to do to equal that value on that 81,000? Like that's tough, man. Like that, he's got to be a real player. They kind of stink from what I understand. Like they got a lot of issues over there. He was pretty much saying that their starting five is broken last night on the internet. Like,
Yeah,
like, and that's
they do
obviously
have
a
a lot.
micro moment, but go ahead.
They have a lot to figure out. I mean, let's give come a little bit of slack because they just brought in Rudy Gobert. It's kind of a new starting five compared to last year. They do have a lot of talent, and their bench isn't like terrible, but they are 4-4 to start the season, and they've lost some terrible games like to the Spurs and to the Jazz, who they traded all their draft picks to get Rudy Gobert. So like, there's definitely a few things going on there. But the other thing, Lou, is I was looking at like just the stats in the NBA today. I think it's gonna be so difficult to stand out going forward. There's so many players that are like putting up like good numbers that like to be that guy that stands out above the rest. Like Anthony Edwards isn't like putting in bad numbers, but he's not putting in numbers to be like, oh, Anthony Edwards top 10 player in the NBA. Like it's just not happening right now. And
I
I
agree with
think,
you.
and that's not necessarily like, I don't think that people are expecting me top 10 in the NBA this season, but at the same time, when you look at like 141K, like you better hope that he's gonna be like really, really good.
Yeah, like again, I don't want to like pocket watch or like anything like that, because you always get into this when you're talking about high price auctions. But like, you bought the card on January 2022. Like, I don't know what's happened between January and October to rationalize a higher sale. I don't think anything, which leads me to believe people know what's happening when they put these cards up for sale.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that there was a comment like on our Instagram post that was about this topic, whereas like if you're putting these cards up for auction, you have to know that you're not going to do well listing it this quickly back up for auction, and presumably everyone has a reason on why they're selling it. So
Hmm.
like Lou said, like we're not knocking people's reasons for selling it. It's more like if you this is more of a learning thing for people who are buying these cards or who are looking to get a really high end card of maybe their favorite player right now. It's like if you scroll down to that point, actually you're not going to get to that point yet because you should scroll down a little bit more. A little bit more. So it says, is it time to, a little bit higher? It says, is it time to, there you go. Is it time to avoid grail cards? So the thing is, it's like, I don't want to sit here and put up all these things and say, like, oh, you should definitely not buy anything that's one of one or these big parallels. Like, yes, for a time, I think Lou, maybe everything that everyone was hearing was you got to get your grails now. You got to get in because they're going to do so much better than all the higher population cards, this and that. And
Yeah.
I do think that the percentage odds of them doing better is higher because there's just less supply. You just have to find the exact right situation, right? Like you can't just like list it up for auction or up for buy now best offer and see that sale benefit you within 3 months. But I don't think that it's time to avoid these cards at all. It's just like if you are looking to purchase one of these cards, it's like purchase within your means. That's number one, always. Buy only cards you believe in, as Lou stated. Like you got to buy something you believe in. If you don't believe in it, within 4 months you're gonna be like, I don't want this. I want to move on to the next thing, whatever it is. And you got to intend to hold the card until there's a shift in a player's market overall, or a player's market or the card market overall. Because like the number one thing, it's like Lou's like, I don't think there's much of a reason why this Anthony Edwards card would have went up in price if you're like logically thinking about it. But if you look at Erling Haaland here, we wanted to look at a couple of other examples, like on the other side of the coin. It's like this BGS 10 red refractor out of 10. It sold for $29,520 on June 6, 2021. Okay, so this is like a year and a half ago about. And it was actually resold October 20th, 2022, in like all these same auctions that were happening towards the end of October when everything, we were looking at these ones that were being flipped. But this card sold for 38,400, which that's pretty substantial. A 30% rise in the last year and a half. I think a lot of people would like really love to have a 30% gain in the last year and a half, especially on a 5-figure card. And there's a reason for that. I mean, Erling Haaland's he's on pace to break the Premier League scoring record. He's going to be in Champions League competition come the spring, playing the round of 16, and hopefully, for Man City fans, not for myself as a Chelsea fan, but they might win their first Champions League ever. And it looks like as long as Arsenal, unless they keep on going, I mean, Man City should win the Premier League title again, 5th time in 6 years. So like, there's a lot going for why this card would rise in price. If you scroll down again, Alexander Ovechkin's another situation
That's a
here.
cool
So
card.
that's a super sick card. The honorable numbers. I was actually looking at buying one of these raw. I remember, I never pulled the trigger, but last year, a year and a half ago, also 12,288, the exact same card, exact same grade, exact same serial number, and everything. 56% rise to 19,200 October 22nd, 2022. Fun fact: the left date, June 25th, is my birthday. The right date, October 22nd, is my dad's birthday. That's
Really?
crazy. Yeah,
That's weird.
I know, super odd. I knew that the one on the left was mine. I just realized the one on the right was my dad's. But either way, the thing about Ovechkin, he scored 50 goals last season at age 36, which is insane. And he's coming up on breaking Gretzky's scoring record. So he did something that made this card rise in value, and someone went to sell it, and it worked out a year and a half later. It wasn't 3 months later. And then I also want to point out that Ovechkin's overall card ladder player index over that same period of time increased 53%. So if you're trying to look at it from the standpoint of like, how have the other cards performed to tell me if it's an okay time to sell this? If you had this card and you're like, wow, Ovechkin's card ladder index, his player index rose 50% in value, pretty much matches this 56% increase. Funny enough, like I'm not saying it's going to work every single time or every single summation of different cards and their values increasing or decreases in price is going to match the grails, because obviously it doesn't if you look at the ones that were flipped within 3 months. But it's a good thing to do some extra research and see. And that really just kind of rounds out the whole holding for a substantial amount of time until something determines that maybe you should sell it, buying within your means, and also, something you actually really care about. Lou, any final thoughts on that?
No, I think I agree with you. And like you also said, there's a million different ways to do it. It doesn't always work out the exact same way every single time, but I do think it's safe to say when you're buying something super rare, super high priced, part of what you're saying is like you're taking a card off the table for other people. So you need to hold it for a long enough time that demand can recreate itself, because once the auction happens, it kind of cools down. So, a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. We've seen a bunch of those sales in the past here. Those typically tend to have better results.
Definitely. And I just want to emphasize this so much that like when you are buying an auction, you do have to understand that you're winning the card at the final price because you are in a bidding war. In 4 months from now, like I know that there's a bunch of cards I thought 4 months ago that I really wanted that I don't even remember what they are now. Like
Oh
there's
yeah,
so much like short-term attention span specific cards that you do need to let that thing mature and let the market mature.
100%.
Even whatever it might be.
100%. Next.
Yes, sir. All right, this is our kind of learning lessons, and that's kind of what we're calling this month of October. Is like different things to learn from. Aaron Judge. So Aaron Judge, we talked about him last market report, hitting that 61st, 62nd home run. The market went crazy. A lot of his cards, increased by double to three times in value within like a month or two alone. Well, this is just looking at his October sales on his Bowman Chrome Auto PSA 10 was over $5,000 at the start of the month. Now it's about $2,200. It might even be a little bit lower since the start of November now. If this doesn't show you when's the time to sell, then I'm not really sure what is. If you ever have a card of a player that gets so much attention at a certain point in time because of a specific reason, it's a really, really smart thing to do is to sell it. You could have bought this card 6 months ago for $900. I'm sure you'd be very happy right now to even get $1,000 in profit. But there was plenty of sales that happened even before October started that were over $3,000 type of thing as this thing was rising before this 1 month graph. And then it all came crashing down after he did not very well in the postseason. The Yankees were eliminated because they did not have a good team. Aaron Judge really carried them to the playoffs. I don't even think they really make the playoffs if Aaron Judge is not as hot as he is during the regular season. I'm sure you might agree with that, Lou.
Yeah, they're a flawed team. It's honestly, I was gonna say it's an example of like you can't get caught up in the moment either, right? Like Judge had this like crazy run, 6 home runs in a season. The whole thing gets built up. It's broken into college football, all that stuff. Regardless of that, come playoff time, I think anyone with a brain knew that the Yankees were really flawed and they were going to be in trouble. So like, and this is not even a joke. Like they just weren't going to succeed in the playoffs. So you had to see something like this coming, and I think it reflects in the prices. Like as the playoffs went on, I think the price went down, which has to do with a couple different factors. But as the season winds down and the team tends to be in trouble, the prices are going to go down. And now I would imagine for this Judge card, right? Like the next spike will probably be like when he signs his free agent deal, wherever that ends up being, whether that's New York or San Francisco or LA or whatever. But I would imagine this card still has some room to go down.
Yeah, so let's look. I'm just looking right now on the fly. So the card's now down to $1,920, which is under 2K. The last time it was at that value was July 28th, 2022, which is obviously before kind of his crazy second half of the season run.
Yeah, that's when they
Um,
were like the bottom of their like losing streak, I think it was, or like when
yeah,
they were playing poorly.
and before the season, like I said, it was $900. So you still could cash $1,000 if you bought before the season.
Mm-hmm.
You mu-
If you bought it before the season, great job by you. You should probably take your money, unless you love Aaron Judge.
That's the other thing too. I want to point out all this stuff. If you collect Aaron Judge, if you love Aaron Judge, if you bought Aaron Judge cards after his 62nd home run and you didn't care what happened to the value of the card because you want to buy it at that moment because it was a great moment for you as
Yeah,
a
that's your
Yankees fan,
guy.
perfect. Like that's exactly what cards are for. It's to collect them and enjoy them and everything like that. But if it was bought, to make some money off of $5,000 or more, I'm not exactly sure what I don't like. Aaron Judge is kind of like, okay, he's way better than this player. But Jimmy Garoppolo had like, as Nate's put it, like cat lives when it comes to cards, like gaining value, losing value, regaining value, losing value between getting traded to the Niners, going to the Super Bowl, then being terrible, then getting starting quarterback again, all that different stuff. Judge's career has kind of been similar, like huge spikes rookie season, big drop, another huge spike when he had a great season, big drop after injury. Now, obviously, he hit all-time highs this season, but it's like how many times can his cards just keep on going up back in value to like that, 4,000 valuation before people are like, oh yeah, maybe the same thing will play out and they'll drop again. So I don't know what that perfect number is. I really don't. I'm not a super in-depth baseball collector. All I know is that these cards, it was as Lou pointed out last episode, it was the time to sell last episode when we were talking about it.
Absolutely, it was.
Now, the reason why I also bring this up is because if you look at the next one, Bryce Harper. So he had a great run in this postseason so far. We'll see if the Phillies turn around the last two games. I know Lou's thinking no, game six, it's done in Houston. But he did really have quite the series is coming up to the postseason. Average of 421, OPS, 1300 range, six home. He has sixth home run the other night, I believe, in the World Series of this postseason. And yeah, over the last month, this BGS 9.5 base autos went from like $700. It, I think it might have been the night they hit that homer against the Padres, gets up to like 16, and now it's down
That would make
to
sense, right?
1,000. What?
It would make sense. That was the night that home run got hit.
Yeah, like I'd presume, right?
Yeah.
And 39% increase, regardless of if that outlier or the home run sale is there or not. So still a nice increase for 1 month like that. Like I said, anyone even in the market 4 years ago, if your card rises 39% in 1 month, like you're partying. I think that's probably the same way it is today,
Dude,
right
if you
now.
were that was happening like 3 years ago, you were pumped. What are you talking? 40% a month is a lot.
No, I agree. I'm totally in agreement
Yeah.
with you. And the point here, it's like, regardless, now maybe there's a little bit more room if like if the Phillies come back and win these next two games and Harper like hits a home run a game and people
Of
get super
course.
jacked up about that. But the odds of that happening, admittedly, are like extremely low. Maybe it does, but maybe it doesn't. But the point is either way, after this World Series, it's very, very likely that these things are going to regress back to what they were prior to the postseason, or
No matter
maybe
what
even like.
happens. I think that's safe to say for everything.
Yeah, exactly. No matter what happens. Like as soon as 3 months ago, his card was $705. I think everyone still knew at that point that Bryce Harper kind of like had it in him, but he obviously did some things that not many players do in clutch time. I wouldn't be surprised if this definitely gets back to $800 here pretty quickly. So same deal. It's like if you have some profit in Bryce Harper, isn't a bad idea to take it when it's on the table, especially right now. So that's a learning lesson there with the old baseball.
Yeah, I think I wanted to tell them about Harper too. Harper's an interesting figure in baseball because he was like when he was a kid, he had that video go viral of hitting home runs in the Rays Stadium. He gets to the Nationals. He gets up to the majors really young. He was in Washington, could never get the job done. Finally gets to Philly. Like Philly embraces him like very few players I've seen get embraced in a new city like this quickly. Um, and he kind of becomes who everyone always thought he would be this year, right? Like, or was it this year? When did he win the MVP last year?
He won the MVP last year, but he also won it at one point with like an all-time year at the Nationals. And after his
Yeah, I know
MVP
the
at the
Nationals he had the
Nationals,
year, but when he got to Philly, it kind of like went to a different level. It felt like, and he sort of became who he was. Um, so I think regardless of the outcome of this series, like Bryce Harper's an interesting guy to watch going forward in baseball, I think, because he has all the makings of a guy who's just like a centerpiece of a contending team in Philly for the next like 5 to 10 years, like not 10 years, but like 5 years. I really like Bryce as a player, and I really like the story of his career. I've always been a big Bryce guy.
yeah, I mean he's obviously a great career, honestly. Like he's got a 913 career OPS, which any player would love to have. So
That's insane.
exactly. And that's even with some down years and some injury years like this year and everything like that. Like last year was his second best year of his career. Best year being 2015 when he had 42 home runs at 1.109
Yeah,
OPS.
it's
But
like
I
this
mean,
is my house, the celebration, like you know.
yeah, and he's doing it when it matters. And that's why people who are like kind of anti Mike Trout are using this year to really like poke at Mike Trout. It's like,
It's
well,
a
Mike Trout's
good
got one.
argument.
Yeah, Mike Trout's got one wild card appearance ever. And obviously, like baseball is a completely different ball game than basketball. Where in basketball, one man can kind of will a team to do some things, but in baseball, it's nearly impossible.
Yep.
All right,
Excuse
moving
me.
on to the next one. So another thing to point out in this market today, basketball and hockey are back. That's takeaway 3.
Let's
They
go.
both. What do you say?
So let's go.
I know it's exciting, right? There's a lot of sports on right now, and what that does for the market is some interesting things. Like you're going to see people play extremely well to start this season. Like right now, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I love this guy for a long time. It's a shame I don't actually have any cards of him, and I didn't
People are
draft him last
talking about him. I've heard his name like 4 times in the last week.
yes, there has been quite a bit of chatter on our Instagram page about him. But I've really been a fan of him since like 2018 when he was drafted. He like had a really good makeup coming out of Kentucky. Was playing with Chris Paul at the time. Thought he was going to learn a lot from him, and then they trade him to OKC for Paul George. And ever since then, he's kind of been injured for like half the season all these other years. But part of me thinks like, hey Shay, you got an injury, sit out for a bit, right? Like he's their best player. They don't want to win games. They want to get high draft picks. And his cards are doing extremely well right now. Now, Shea, I don't actually believe is in this report because since the start of November, he's been even better now. But the point is that to start seasons, a lot of the time is going to be like some of the biggest attention that comes throughout the entire year. It's at the start of the season, and as we see when someone performs in the playoffs, like Bryce Harper, it's at the end of the season. So if you do have cards of guys right now, and you're really invested both personally and maybe card wise into a sport like basketball, it's a wise thing to do to be checking box scores each night, to be watching the games, maybe to be seeing how their cards are moving on the different marketplaces, given their performances. Because if you scroll down here, you're gonna see, like Luka, you start the season super hot. I think a lot of people who bought Luka, because they're like, oh man, his cards have dipped way too much. Like they did drop substantially through the end of last season in the summer. And there might be a little bit of opportunity to like sell one right now and make a little bit of money if you bought it at the very rock bottom. And then Giannis and Ja are two of the other top MVP candidates right now. I love how the Bucks are playing. And then if you scroll down a little bit too, on the other end of the coin, there's a lot of overreactions to start a year. Now, maybe these particular situations are not overreactions, but drops can happen extremely quickly if players get really bad narratives to start, like James Harden, Ben Simmons, or Anthony Davis. Davis actually has put up some decent numbers so far this season, but up to this article writing, the Lakers won like one game, and he missed a game. His goal was to play every single game this year because he's missed like 20 games the last like 4 years or something.
And he already missed the game.
He did miss a game, but I think he might be healthy as of today. And then the other thing that's kind of pointing out, if you keep scrolling down about paying attention to the box scores, it's like Karis LeVert. He was one of our budget risers in this article, in this report, because he scored 41 points in overtime win against the Celtics. Now, Karis LeVert is like the fourth or fifth biggest name on the Cavs team right now. I mean, you have Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, and I'm forgetting one probably, but I mean, Jarrett Allen is a big name, but maybe he's not, a better scoring option. Karis LeVert, he's not. But either way, LeVert scored 41 points. This Prism Silver PSA 10 went from like $30 to $100. And yes, it was one sale. So like there's a good chance that someone just really, really wanted one. And that leads to this trend that we see. Maybe the next one won't sell for 100 because after this 41-point game, he scored 1 point. So you kind of got to be ready to capitalize on that if you're a big basketball collector looking to, make some sales. And Keldon Johnson's been really good up to the end of October. The Spurs were 5-2. Definitely the biggest surprise team of the year next to the Jazz. They are tied for the preseason for the worst odds to win the NBA title. And they both ended October 5-2. But since then, the Spurs gave like 140 points to the Raptors. And then Anthony Simons has been playing pretty well with the Blazers, being one of the top teams in the West too so far. So definitely some interesting shakeups. But the point here is like, beginning of the season, it's time to pay attention if you got some cards you're ready to sell, because you can miss an opportunity extremely quickly.
Definitely. Like, I think, I'm not a guy who watches a lot of basketball, but I know Karis LeVert isn't exactly like a top 30 NBA player. So
yes,
if he has a double one night or something, like I'm on eBay, like I'm ready to make moves.
Yeah, you're ready to convert that sale after that.
Yeah, like let's get the promoted listing, like all of it. Like get me,
get that thing on my site.
Yeah.
And then going down to hockey for the hockey fans out there. So McDavid has been absolutely unreal, as I pointed out earlier. I think up to this point, he's got 12 goals and 12 assists in like 10 games so far, which is insane. He's got like 24 points. Drysdale's right behind him in points. The teammates are dominating. Both their young guns have risen a little bit to start the year over the last month. And David Pastrnak is probably one of the biggest risers in like the higher end category. The Bruins are 9-1. I don't know if anyone out there you're friends with are like big Rangers fans and hate like Boston fans or something like that, but the Bruins are like easily the best team in the NHL right now, 9-1, and or maybe even 10-1 at this point. They might be 10-1 after last night. So they're doing extremely well, and Pastrnak is leading their team in points right now and third in the NHL in points also. So bottom line, if you got cards of players that have risen in value, not a bad time to get them up and get them sold.
Definitely not a bad time. Yeah, I think we haven't talked about it, but that's not true. We obviously have, but like, I don't even know why I said that, but it's an interesting moment in the market where like you have these cards that are rising and you feel good, right? Like I've been watching a decent amount of hockey. Like Pasternak's probably going to be good for the whole season. Like he's going to keep getting better throughout this year here. Mm-hmm. But like, again, you just don't know what's going to happen. Like people need money right now. So like if you are somebody who has a card like this that's gone up does it say 60% there?
Yeah,
20?
60% a month. It was like I think maybe
Yeah,
like
like you
600 bucks.
gotta, with all due respect, that's a Young Guns Upper Deck card. Like you gotta move that card. Like I'm just being straight up. Like I'm just giving my opinion. I know nothing. What do I know? But like the world we're living in right now, you need to get rid of this card in this moment.
So,
And
so
I've
I
been
got
watching a decent amount of
you
hockey,
need to
by the
get.
way, low key.
What do you say?
I've been watching a decent amount of hockey, by the way.
So have I. I'm a huge
I
hockey
love
fan.
hockey.
I've played up until 6th grade for many, many years, and then played in a college or kind of like an adult league with my dad and brother for a year of sophomore in college, and I absolutely love hockey. But Lou, so something interesting here, I think, which is good to think about for anyone who is maybe wondering, like, hey, why has David Pastrnak risen 59%, but
Mhm.
Drysdale only 22 and McDavid only 8? Well, first of all, McDavid's is a $3,000 card. Way harder to get 59% increase out of a $3,000 card
Yep.
versus a $600 card at the time with Pastrnak. But the population reports for these specific cards are in reverse. So like the McDavid, most expensive card, the population's like 3,000, I think, for his Young Guns PSA 10. It only increased 8%. For Drysdale, his population on his Young Guns PSA 10 for the PSA 10 pop, it's I think it's like 400. Let me check super quick because I don't want to be wrong, but I think it's like 400 for Leon. It's 586, so it's a little higher than that.
Mm.
And then if you look at Pastrnak, and this is when I was kind of like, you said, and I'm not blaming you because this is still good thought. You're like, hey, it's Young Guns PSA 10, right? Like there's a lot of them out there. There are a lot of Young Guns out there, but the Pastrnak's only 151 PSA 10s.
Wow.
Like that's substantially lower than 586 for Drysdale, and obviously way lower than
Do you think that's a grading? That's got to be a grading issue, right?
I would have
Or
to
not
look
an
and
issue, but
I'd have to see what the PSA 9 is, but there's a good chance that PSA 9 there's only 133. So in reality, most likely situation here is that just less people
we're
want to
submitting
grade.
pastas, right?
Yeah.
He also has a
Like
great nickname. Great nickname.
what is it?
Pasta.
Pasta. I love that.
People just call him Pasta.
I mean, here's the difficult thing to understand. It's like I try to look for every single reason why something like this might be the case. And yes, back in 2019 when cards were smaller, less valuable, and hockey cards specifically too, it's like a $178 card. But for the last 2 years, this has been $1,000 card. Like this has not really moved a whole lot in the last 2 years. When Drysdale, he's got obviously
This is weird, huh?
Drysdale's got 400 more PSA 10s, but at the same time, Drysdale's card has also been about $1,000 to like 15 to 700 in the last 2 years also. So there's really no value difference between them. I don't know if maybe just people are because there's only 202 BGS 95s of the Pastrnak also when there's like 7,000 95s in McDavid. So like it's not I don't know, it's very interesting. But the point here is that can lead to quicker movement in these cards because there's less available and the next person goes by and buys one and there's just less out there. So it's just an interesting thing, and that's why it's always good to do a little bit deeper research to understand this stuff. Because on surface level, I would myself and probably others included think it's nuts to think that Drysdale's a little bit less than Pastrnak when Drysdale last year had an insane season and him and McDavid combo's unreal, and hopefully this year they can actually make it to the Cup Finals. But it's deeper than that. It has to do with the supply of the Pastrnak PSA 10.
Yeah, if you're a hockey collector, and there's a reason for this that we're not seeing, is it like a grading issue? Do people know not to submit those? Like, I would love to know what that is. 'Cause that's very confusing. Or do we just find like an inefficiency randomly by accident?
I mean, it's possible. It's possible that
Yeah.
people, or in the furthest extent, it's like Pasternak's an SP Young Guns, right? Like if there's just less.
Yeah, maybe
grade
that's what
overall.
it is. Like, I don't. There's got to be something. Because
Which
even I was looking at
I
the raw ones are doing 250, 275, 202, 230. So
I have no idea, man.
it's interesting.
And also, I don't believe it to be SP, by the way. I don't think they'd made any Young Guns SP versus each other. Maybe that's wrong of me also. So if there is someone who knows like tons about Young Guns, I know quite a bit, but not as much as maybe like the diehard expert. So I know I don't know as much as a diehard expert. All right, we're going to skip over this one. If you do want to read about this, it's about the categories and the changes and everything like that.
ETH is back, huh? And Bitcoin's over 20K for the first time in a while.
Yeah, no, crypto actually did do something in October. But you can read about the different categories, and we kind of talked a lot through them. But football the excitement has went away, and as we thought, those football cards rose a lot. A lot of them have came down quite a bit. And I do want to point out that that 20% loss for football in October, it does have a lot to do with like those $400,000, $100,000 Mahomes and different cards like that were being resold pretty quickly. So I don't want
But it
someone to
is
be
a
like,
big piece of it.
oh
Like,
no, I totally agree. It is a big piece of the football market, but I just want to point out that a lot of that decline is attributed to some very high end sales. So maybe it isn't as much your whatever $50 card drop
fair
20,
enough.
which is possible too. I'm not saying it's not possible. It is possible, for sure. But I just want to point that out. Now, Lou, if you want to keep scrolling down, people can read about the who's hot, who's not. If you fly past that, but go down to looking ahead. So coming up in November, there's some big things going on, specifically with the World Cup. I myself, massive soccer fan. Not as big as some other people out there I know, but I've
Fan
gained
since day
great.
one.
What do you say?
I'm a big soccer guy.
Well, I know you pledged your allegiance to Leeds, and then you
Yep.
haven't really said anything because they've been so terrible since you.
I've been keeping tabs. I haven't been watching, if I'm being honest, but I'm keeping tabs. They're not very good.
Okay, so what happened last week?
They won last week.
Yes, Lou actually did know.
I'm
Yeah,
paying attention. I'm paying
They beat
attention.
Liverpool last week, man.
Yeah.
They beat Liverpool on the road. They played at Anfield and won.
I saw it was like a big deal. I didn't know why, but I did see it was a big deal.
It's a massive deal. Like, you know how like home field advantage is like, obviously a big deal in just American sports too, but it's like an even bigger deal out there. It's like
Really?
if you're at home, like you better not freaking lose. Otherwise there's gonna be riots. Like that's what it is, man.
Tough break.
And Virgil van Dijk, so Liverpool's best defender for the last multiple years. It was his first match he's ever lost at home. So it was
in his career?
Yeah, he's never lost at home. It was like 70 matches or something at home he's played. So he was hurt for like at least 3/4 of the season 2 years ago, I believe. But yeah, no, it was a long streak, and then he lost. So it was definitely talked a lot about. Now, but getting back to what's coming up in November. So World Cup starts on November 20th. I myself super excited. We talked a lot about this 2 episodes ago. So please, if you do want to learn more about the World Cup and the market, the soccer car market, how it's changed, go back and listen to that would be August's market report, I believe. But Prism World Cup releases on November 9th. That's this upcoming Wednesday. Pretty important set. I had some displeasure for the 2022 National Treasures Road to Qatar set because they released a set that omitted Canada and Morocco and I think Senegal too, and multiple other teams that were supposed to be, that are in the World Cup but weren't included in the set. And then the checklist was lacking, in my opinion. But for this
They
2022
didn't include
Prism,
teams that were in the World Cup.
no, they left off teams that like Canada made the World Cup for the first time since 1986. They weren't in the National Treasure set. And
Interesting.
they were calling these sets Road to Qatar. Like they were supposed to release a year ago, but then they delayed National Treasure so much and they got Mbappe's autograph in it, so they delayed it more. Now, the point is that this upcoming Prism set, they finally are releasing a World Cup specific set where, yes, Canada's in it, Morocco's in it. Every country that's in the World Cup is in this set, which is very exciting. And there's some new rookie cards of new players. The prospect list is pretty solid. So it should be pretty fun. The autograph checklist is a little interesting and lacking, but that's another story. Either way, exciting release, exciting times for those soccer fans out there, and it'll be definitely a month of national pride for everyone around the world. So I'm super excited about that. And then for baseball card collectors, 2022 Bowman Chrome does hit the shelves at the end of this month. And for those Brewer fans out there, Jackson Chourio, we're fingers crossed, are hoping gets his first auto. He's a top 3 prospect in baseball, super young age. I think he had like some of the biggest stats at his age since like Franco and Vlad Guerrero Jr. and stuff. So Lou, watch out. Jackson Chourio is going to come and beat the Astros here in 5 years. Lou's
I'm worried.
He's like, give me more World Series in those 5 years.
Yeah, please. Like, oh no, I have to go back to the World Series again. Oh no.
Hey man, that's what we look forward to as Brewers fans. Is maybe that one opportunity that someone will take.
I would love to go to a Brewers game for a World Series.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, baseball fans can look out for that. And that's all I got. Obviously, you local card shows. If you all want to go to a card show this month,
Garfield, shout out the Garfield card show. I've been to that card show many times. If you are someone who goes to that show and sets up at that show, you're a legend because that place, that's an interesting spot for a card show.
Garfield?
Yes, that
Where
Garfield card show. If I remember correctly, and I probably have it wrong now that I'm saying it out loud and I'm calling it out, but if I remember it correctly, it's like inside of like a school gym. It's awesome. And the school gym is from like the 70s. It's sick.
That's awesome. That's very, very cool. But lots of card shows on the list. And at the end of the article, there's some product releases too. So go read up on the different product releases and everything like that. But that's all I got for today. Not all cards are dropping value. There's definitely some gaining, and you just gotta be smart with how you're spending your money and how you're selling and all that different stuff right now.
Always, yeah. I think as always, interesting times ahead. There's a lot of stuff pending in the world that I think coming towards the end of this year are going to have a big impact on 2023. I think 2023 is a very interesting year for cards and kind of the future of the hobby, because you're going to get a lot of people who have sold off all of their big cards. And what do those people do? They re-inject that money back into the market. Do they keep holding on to their money? I think there's a lot of interesting learnings to be had here. And as always, if you enjoyed this, please check out the full article on 137pm.com. Do your own research. Please make sure you're confident. Like, as we've said 100 times on the show, and I'll say it 100 more times, make sure you're comfortable with the purchases you're making. Because in the hobby that we're in general, the prices tend to go crazy in one direction or the other, like ping pong back and forth. But especially in the climate we're in the world and the economy we're in the world, and kind of all of the signals that are coming out anytime you go on Twitter, I feel like there's like some kind of crazy piece of news coming out. So point being here, make sure you're comfortable with your stuff. Make sure you're buying things you love. Make sure you're buying things you're comfortable holding on to for a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I remember I laugh about this now, but I remember when I adopted my cat, there was a big sign that said, like, you are making a 15-year commitment. I feel like when you're buying a car, there should be like a big stamp that comes on the screen that's like, you are making a 2-year commitment to this car. Like, please enjoy it. So that was my long, drawn out way of saying, I hope you're making smart, sound decisions for yourself.
But remember, if something changes within those 2 years, it's always okay to go ahead and sell it.
Of course. Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like you guys got kind of like, you gotta know it's gonna maybe take a while, but if there's something that changes, I mean, pay attention, and you never know what can happen.
Yeah, that's more. I'm just saying from like a mindset standpoint. Like, I'm making an investment of this money for 2 years. Like, I'm
totally agree.
Putting this money on the side for 2 years, and I can't get it back.
I definitely agree with you.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. So that was good. Thank you, Aaron, as always. Again, as I said, thank you to Jay. Thank you to Court, who are in the back, cutting up stuff for social, editing the podcast, all that good stuff. I think that's it. So thank you, everyone, again, and we'll see you next time. Peace and love.